Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Trump enemies panic to get pardons quickly before he's in power. Donald Trump is about to be president again, and the people that tried to stop him are worried he's going to throw them in jail. Coming from the Hill, pardon envy. Democrats vie to make the Biden pardon list. And coming from the New York Times, Trump's FBI pick has an enemies list. Biden should pardon everyone on it. But here's the problem. Biden could pardon everyone on the list, and he probably will pardon everyone on the list. But some people are starting to realize if you do pardon people, it does make them look really guilty. From the Hill, Auchincloss says preemptive pardons seem to imply guilt. They do imply guilt. It's like the Hunter Biden situation. Even Hunter Biden knows that he committed a lot of crimes. He was convicted on one and he pled to another, and he was going to have sentencing for his tax crimes, and that was all stopped by the blanket pardon for Hunter Biden. But now the Biden administration has to figure out, what should we do here? They had a lot of people that did a lot of things. Politicians, DOJ people, FBI people, even staffers that did do some things that they thought would be for the benefit of, let's say, national security, but that, yeah, they could probably be prosecuted for. If they weren't concerned about being prosecuted for things that they did to get what they wanted to have happen, which didn't happen, Trump did become president again. But if they hadn't have done those things, if they hadn't have bent the rules, they probably wouldn't be so concerned right now. Yes, people can be harassed by the Department of Justice and accused of things that they didn't do. And no one wants to have to hire defense lawyers and deal with criminal courts, even if they believe they're innocent. But the alternative now is for them to accept a pardon. And the pardon would stop prosecutions most likely. But it doesn't mean they wouldn't be called to testify. There's really little to no way out of this. In the meantime, at least if they got a pardon, it protects them from certain legal consequences. But that doesn't mean they can't testify. It doesn't mean they won't testify. They still have to testify if they're called as part of a larger investigation. It's a total mess for them. But they brought this on themselves. From the Hill, pardon envy. Democrats vie to make the Biden pardon list. Liberal pundits and press in Washington are facing a growing nightmare in Washington. No, it's not the victory of President-elect Donald Trump or the Democrats' loss of both houses of Congress and the popular vote in this election. It's the possibility that democracy may not collapse as predicted, and Trump might not even round up his opponents en masse. For months, liberals have been telling voters that this will likely be their last election and that democracy is about to end in the U.S. ABC host Whoopi Goldberg declared on The View that Trump will immediately become a dictator who will put people away, take all the journalists, take all the gay folks, move all you around and disappear you. Many predicted they would be on the top of the enemies list and the first to be rounded up. Now the moment is nearly here, and pundits are dreading that the public may notice there is no line of democracy champions being frog-marched down Pennsylvania Avenue. Faced with such a scenario and a further loss of credibility, many are coming up with the next best thing, pretending they stopped the roundup by having Biden pardon everyone. The spin will be that Trump would have gone after rivals, but was prevented from doing so by Biden. The idea is to portray yourself as a white knight, riding down to protect the vulnerable and timid from the coming horde. Even if democracy inconveniently survives, Biden can preserve the narrative with sweeping pardons. The White House is reportedly exploring giving preemptive pardons to figures ranging from Dr. Fauci, Senator-elect Adam Schiff, and former Representative Liz Cheney. Adam Schiff has said he doesn't want any pardon because he realizes, really even a child could realize it when you start to think about it, when you accept a blanket pardon, it really does look like you've done something wrong. People know there were funny things going on with Hunter Biden that he wasn't even charged for, and that is why he needed an 11-year protection of whatever it was that he might have done that might have been illegal, so that those activities or activities he may have done or may not have done with his father or other people can't even be explored, or at least can't be prosecuted. But Adam Schiff, for example, who has done a few shady things like claiming the Russia hoax for year after year after year, even still claiming it, he knows he's got a future as a senator. He was just elected, and it could be tarnished forever if he accepts a blanket pardon for things that he's accused of having done. Biden could give everyone in the country a blanket pardon. It's not going to protect Biden from whatever Trump's criticisms are or whatever narratives that Trump starts about when Trump was being persecuted. Whatever they did in the past, whatever Liz Cheney did in the past, whatever Adam Schiff or Joe Biden did in the past, that's not going to protect them from what Trump accuses them of in the future, or when Trump starts doing massive declassifications, which will immediately be within his authority as soon as he gets in. Declassifications of documents that show, hey, there were some really questionable, funny things that went on that were never released to the public. Documents in the DOJ, documents in the FBI, documents in multiple executive agencies. Can you imagine what's been going on in all of the departments under Mayorkas, the guy who's supposed to be in charge of Homeland Security, as well as the Secret Service? Those documents are coming out. And these people, while they might have pardons, won't have any way to protect themselves from what the documents actually show. And the media can ignore it. The media can try to avoid it, but it's coming out. It's not like Elon Musk doesn't control X now. It's not like alternative media hasn't been getting the word out. Anything that Trump and his new people accuse these people of having done that they will have pardons for is going to become public knowledge. Liz Cheney previously declared that this may well be the last real vote you ever get to cast. A pardon would preserve her persona as a modern-day Joan of Arc who avoided being burnt at the stake only by the grace of a Biden pardon. Others seem to be panicking that there may be a list of pardoned people, but they will be left off the list. Call it pardon envy. The only thing worse than not being on a Trump enemies list is not being on a Biden pardon list. Before the election, MSNBC host Al Sharpton and regular Donnie Deutsch warned viewers that they would likely be added to an enemies list. MSNBC host Rachel Maddow ominously told her viewers that, quote, "Yes, I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us." Trump doesn't care anything about Al Sharpton and Donnie Deutsch and Rachel Maddow. They can do whatever they want to do on MSNBC. That's not important to him. I don't know if Kash Patel is cool with it, but Trump doesn't care about them. Washington columnist Jennifer Rubin seemed apoplectic that she and others might be omitted from both lists. One has to be somewhat sympathetic to Rubin. To be left unpardoned and unarrested is to lose all standing among the Save Democracy social set. Rubin, once dubbed the post-Republican columnist, has called for the Republican Party to be burned down and recently advised people how to keep panic alive despite the election. Quote, "You can't talk broad themes. You have to boil it down to nuts and bolts, and you have to be pithy." What do I mean by pithy? How about this? And she did literally say this. Republicans want to kill your kids. It's true. Of course, Republicans don't want to kill your kids. Democrats don't want to. Independents don't want to. It's a crazy, crazy statement. In a podcast, Rubin explained that Biden should pardon thousands to blunt Trump's initial round of revenge, from journalists to the little guy and gal counting votes. She advised that he could pardon whole categories of people to pardon anyone Trump may have identified by name or type to offer protection from a maniac. In her most recent column, Rubin repeated the call for Biden to pardon scores of Americans due to a reasonable fear that a weaponized FBI directed by a vengeful president will carry out threats to pursue his enemies. The truth, though, of it is these people know what they've done, and they also know that the Department of Justice does have discretion. It depends who's in charge of the Department of Justice. If the Department of Justice decides, hey, this behavior is inappropriate, we want to pursue this, or if the FBI decides to pursue something, there's not a lot those individuals can do except defend themselves with attorneys. And that's what happened not just to Trump, but people who were in Trump's administration. Steve Bannon went to jail. Peter Navarro went to jail. People who worked just as staffers, minor people who were not big players and didn't have resources to even defend themselves, were hauled in front of the January 6th committee and threatened. and pressured and had to hire their own attorneys. That's what these people just did to the Trump people. So yeah, they're well aware that this could easily happen to them. The Hill continues, the key is to issue broad pardons to suggest that absent such extraordinary action, quote, this maniac would have purged whole areas of blue states. It's like telling everyone that you're wearing a tinfoil hat to prevent aliens from snatching you. When someone points out that they have not seen any aliens, you can respond, see, it worked. The Biden White House is considering the use of such white knight pardons to claim that the president did not protect just his son and himself with the pardon power, but many others. Biden wants to remove the stain of his abuse of the pardon power to benefit his own family by turning it into a literal party favor for other Democrats and Trump critics. Even though Trump has denied any interest in retribution, saying that, quote, my revenge will be a success, preemptive pardons leave the impression that they did in fact preempt something that would have occurred. A white knight pardon can also work when you're protecting someone who does not want to be saved. That's the case with a Trump pardon. Such a pardon is absolutely not needed and would constitute the most hostile pardon in history. The federal cases against Trump are effectively dead. Even though they were dismissed without prejudice, it is extremely unlikely they would be resumed. Moreover, the cases brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith were riddled with constitutional problems and unlikely to be sustained even with a conviction. The only ongoing legal threat to Trump is from Democratic prosecutors on the state level, such as the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. A presidential pardon from Biden would not apply to such cases anyway. Although it is still contested that, yeah, a federal pardon might actually work on a state case, even though they're two separate legal systems, because of the Supremacy Clause, stating that federal law, when there's a conflict, does supersede state law. But I don't think this is one that we're going to have to figure out. I think that'll take care of itself. The Georgia case is falling apart, and the New York case is very likely also to completely fall apart. But if Biden is to pardon Trump for non-existent federal cases, it would suggest that Biden saved him from prosecution. This is the same president who did nothing for years until the cases collapsed. Trump may not be the only one who's not interested in a trophy pardon. What's the value of being a part of the resistance if you're not being pursued, persecuted, or pardoned? It seems like some of the same people who'd hoped to be on the list for the Biden inaugural balls are now making calls to make the Biden pardon list. If Biden were to yield to calls for hundreds or even thousands of pardons, the loss of political standing for those not making the list could become intolerable. For any self-respecting armchair resistance fighter in 2025, a Biden pardon could become the latest status symbol. The problem, though, is this really looks at only a moment in time. If all of these thousands of pardons were done by the Biden administration tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, Trump would be using that to his advantage. He would say, look at these lawless people. Look at the terrible things that they did. We're still going to investigate. They know what they did was wrong. The public needs to know the truth. The Trump administration owes it to the truth. We're not trying to put people in jail. We're trying to make sure the public knows what's going on in their own government. And he could continue, a lot of their behaviors were outside of the law. They did it for their own personal reasons. Here, we're going to start a declassification office, as Kash Patel has offered, and we're going to declassify things 24/7 so that you, the public, can read the documents and know for yourself what happened. Additionally, the Department of Justice can still have its own investigation, and it can demand answers from everyone that's on a pardon list. While all those people could have pardons and protect themselves from legal action about what they specifically did in the past, it does not give them permission to not speak to federal investigators or to lie to federal investigators. They would still have to hire attorneys. They would still have to tell the truth. And if they were caught lying, because let's say you interview 100 people and 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 of them give different answers, or you have documents available that show they weren't telling the truth when you just interviewed them, those people could be held accountable for lying during an investigation. That is a serious crime, and that is not something you can pardon. not from the Biden administration. Additionally, all of those interviews can be made public at the discretion of the new Department of Justice. If there are massive pardons issued by the Biden administration to protect all of the people acting on behalf of Biden and the rest of the deep state people, they can certainly protect themselves from some of the things they did in the past that were some of the worst things. But if Trump decides to pursue what happened in the past, even just to let the public know what actually happened, not what the media told them happened, the reputations of these people will rightly be destroyed. Kash Patel does have a massive enemies list. He wrote and published a book called Government Gangsters, where he explained from his perspective, having worked in the government and directly with Donald Trump, Devin Nunes, and others, who these troublemakers are and what they've done. Here's a quick review of his list of people that he thinks really need some accountability. Michael Atkinson, Lloyd Austin, James Baker, Bill Barr, John Bolton, Joe Biden, John Brennan, John Carlin, Eric Ciaramella, Pat Cipollone, James Clapper, Hillary Clinton, Alyssa Farah, Evelyn Farkas, Gina Haspel, Fiona Hill, Eric Holder, Robert Hur, Cassidy Hutchinson, Nina Jankowicz, Lois Lerner, Loretta Lynch. The list goes on. Mike Pence, who's now a social media influencer and was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, used to work in the State Department. He knows these people and he kind of knows what's going on. Mike has stated that many people around Donald Trump have acted against Trump, bending the rules, breaking the law, because there's some general belief that protecting the reputation of the institutions is a national security issue, such that even if you break the law to do it, even if you do things that you know are wrong, that's okay. You won't be held accountable because you're protecting national security. We're going to see over the next year or so whether or not that's true. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.